Hi DMV fans, this is CP from the DMV Sports Zone Show. Today, this is our first official streamlined internet-based TV program covering grassroots sports in the DMV area. Guess what? We found you, we got you, we brought to you an expert. This man is an expert in the sport of boxing. Not only does he know boxing from the in and the out of it, he also knows sports in general. So as you know, here at the DMV Sports Zone Show, we cover grassroots sports. Our purpose is to promote sports in the DMV area. So we are starting the show on a good note, on a professional note, on an expertise note. Hey guys, I'm back here. So, okay, now we come to the spotlight zone where our guest today, he's going to talk to you about boxing in the DMV area. He's here to talk about the upcoming fighters and boxing in general. His name is the highly sought Gary Digital Williams. He's going to introduce himself. I know he has one of the best blogs in the world called the Boxing Along the Beltway. So he's going to talk about that, but let him introduce himself first. Gary, how are you doing?
Fine, CP. Great to be with you, and be honored to be on your first really big internet zone show. And as CP said, I'm Gary Digital Williams from Boxing Along the Beltway, and also write for FightNews.com. And for almost 3 decades, I've been covering boxing in the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, and we have a tremendous history of boxing, CP, as you well know. We've had since in the time I've been covering boxing in the area, we've had 14 world champions, and we've had some great boxers. We have a Hall of Fame, of course, in Mark Too Sharp Johnson. We've had William Joppy and Bernard and Keith Holmes be a part of the middleweight division, along with guys like Bernard Hopkins. Sean Bay Mitchell is a world champion. Over in Baltimore, they had the likes of Vincent Petway, Hasim Rahman. Back here in D.C., you've had the likes of DeMarcus Chop Chop Corley, Eric Aiken. And even on the female side, we've had Lisa Foster and Isra Gerger. Now we have Tori Nelson as a world champion. So we have so many great fighters that our young fighters, who we want to talk about a little bit later on, can really emulate in this area.
Okay, Gary. Okay, let's start going into the meat of this thing. Let the lion start eating the meat.
All right. Sounds
so,
good.
My first question to you, that all these fans are waiting to hear from you. They are waiting right now. They want to hear from you.
Looking forward to it, yeah.
Gary, we have a lot of boxing fans in the DMV area.
Yes.
They want to know, who are the upcoming fighters that in the next 2 years we're going to be signing autographs for them? Can you go and let us know some of the upcoming fighters, male and female?
Well, the question is, do we have enough time for that? No, I'm just kidding. But in all seriousness, though, I say that halfway seriously because we have a lot of them. We have a lot of great boxers. We're looking at a guy behind us by the name of Dusty Hernandez Harrison, who, quite frankly, is already signing autographs everywhere he goes. He's a very popular young man, undefeated at this time. As we take this, he's 15-0, 9 KOs, excellent boxer. This is a guy that, and one of the differences for me, CP, as I've been going through this, is that we're catching guys at the amateur level going into the pros. Dusty's one of those guys. I've been watching Dusty literally since he was about 8 years old. And he is just a tremendously poised young man. He's very popular. His fan base is growing all throughout the East Coast and around the country. He's one of those young guys. If you talk about some other ones, you've got guys like Michael Reed out of Waldorf, Maryland, a junior welterweight who was a 2011 National Golden Gloves champion, and he has just been tremendous, undefeated as we record this. He's undefeated right now. Great young man. He's got a fan base going as well. He's known as Mike Yes Indeed Reed, and he's been outstanding. Also, you have guys like Kevin Rivers Jr. Kevin Rivers was a guy who went into the USA Nationals and did very well as an amateur. Comes from fighting stock. His father was a boxer as well. He has been one of the more exciting boxers we've had in quite some time. Demetrius Ballard out of Southern Maryland. He is a guy who is an outstanding boxer, 2012 National Golden Gloves champion. By the way, he's also signed by Golden Boy. Before his first fight as a pro, he was signed by Golden Boy Promotions. We have guys like Jerry Odom, the King's son, out of Bowie, Maryland, undefeated again, 4-0, 4 KOs at this time. Outstanding prospect, no question about that. He's tremendous. 2012 National Golden Gloves champion. In fact, was the Golden Boy. In other words, he was the outstanding boxer of the National Golden Gloves in 2012 that year. Another one of the guys who won that that title the same year is Gervonta Tank Davis out of Baltimore, Maryland. Again, a tremendous young prospect, super featherweight out of Baltimore, getting ready to headline cards in the very near future. Right now, 3-0, 3 KOs. That's just some of the great boxers we have on the men's side. On the female side, you're looking at Tyrecia Douglas. Tyrecia Douglas was part of the initial female boxers who were involved in the first ever women's Olympic trials for the United States. And she did not get to go to the Olympics. She lost to the lady who eventually was the bronze medalist in the Olympics that year, Marlon Esparza. But people are raving about her already as a pro. Her brother is Antoine Douglas, Action Douglas, already 7-0, 5 KOs, already getting ready to fight 6-round bouts. He was in the men's United States Olympic trials in 2012, making him the first brother-sister duo to do that. So that's just some of the great young talent, and there are many others, but the great young talent that we have in the Beltway region right now.
Hey, Gary, if you look at an international level, the welterweight division is stacked.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned a few boxers, and I can see some welterweights over there. So my question to you is, anyway, I need you to comment more on the welterweight division before I ask you my question. Tell me, why is it that a lot of boxers, our best boxers, are in the welterweight, junior welterweight divisions?
Yeah, I think I don't know from a physical aspect why that's the case, but I'll tell you this much. Because of Sugar Ray Leonard and many others like him, the welterweight division is a glamour division. And a lot of the guys who are now sitting at 135 or 140, and we have a number of 140s in the area, and historically we've had a number of 140 champions, junior welterweight champions. 147 is a glamour level. Again, Sugar Ray Leonard paved the way for that. Guys like Marlon Starling and Simon Brown followed him, Mark Breland. It's a glamour division. So from a boxing standpoint and from a monetary standpoint, it's a glamour division. And in this area in particular, it is one of the divisions, although we have not had a true welterweight champion in this area in quite some time, I think almost 2 decades. We've had guys in and around that area between junior welterweight and junior middleweight, but the money has always been in the welterweight division. And if you look at the welterweight division and the junior welterweight division with guys like Lamont Peterson and Danny Garcia, Lucas Matisse, Marcus Maidana, you have great, great boxers in those 2 levels.
Hey guys, we are back. We are with Gary Digital Williams. If you just came into the show, he runs a blog called Boxing Along the Beltway. This man is the it of DMV Boxing. You cannot talk of boxing without talking or referring to Gary Williams. What are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about. You have to talk to this man. So we are continuing our conversation about the upcoming DMV fighters. Let's go back to the welterweight division. I have a reason why I asked you that question. You mentioned Dusty Harrison as an upcoming fighter. You mentioned Mike Reed as an upcoming fighter. There is a guy who just fought last night. I think his name is Harris, if I'm not sure. He's a welterweight or junior welterweight.
Yeah, Jarrell Harris.
Jarrell Harris. You also have a young guy who just came from the amateurs, Yuri Polishack.
Yuri Polishack, yes.
And there's still many welterweights that we haven't mentioned in the DMV area. I think Dusty and Michael Reed, they are kind of friends.
Yeah.
But listen, eventually they might meet in the ring.
No question about it.
So these upcoming welterweights in the area, this is a boxing business.
Right.
I need your opinion how these kids might fare against each other a year from now.
Okay. Well, first of all, there's historical reference to this because 2 of the best friends in the world at the time they fought were Simon Brown and Maurice Blocker. Simon Brown was the IBF welterweight champion. Maurice Blocker was the WBC welterweight champion. They were the best of friends, but it made dollars, it made sense for the two of them, because they've been dominant as welterweights, to face each other. They fought each other in Las Vegas. Brown won the fight and captured both the IBF and WBC titles. It's happened before. We had another situation. Now, I don't know how good of friends Sean Bay Mitchell and Reggie Green were, but they ended up meeting each other at the 140-pound for the WBA Junior Welterweight Championship. That took place in Washington, D.C. in 1999. So it's happened. Now, to answer your question more directly, right now it's kind of hard to say because, again, these guys are very young in their careers. Looking down the road, that would be a very interesting matchup between Dusty Harrison and Michael Reed because of their size situation. As you see on the side, you see how Dusty Harrison is very, very tall in the situation. Mike Reed is not that tall, but he does have a lot of power. And in this particular bout that we have on the screen behind us, Dusty did something that he even said himself he normally does not do, and that's showcase his jab. And that's what he would need to do against a guy like Michael Reed to try to keep Michael Reed from coming in on him. But again, way down the road in that situation. Talk about guys like Jarrell Harris. Jarrell Harris I had seen a couple times in the amateurs. Looks like a very good prospect right now. Again, hard to tell what the fight he had when we last saw him recently with the knockout against a guy who, quite frankly, probably shouldn't have belonged in there anyway. But that's another question we'll get to a little bit later on, hopefully. Yuri Polishack, I'm very impressed with him. This is a guy who I saw a number of times in the amateurs. Fighting at the novice division, CP, but I really believe that he could have been a very good open fighter if he wanted to. He seemed to be a lot more polished than the average novice fighter. I expect some really good things from Yuri Polishack. I really enjoyed him.
Okay. Now, Gary Digital Williams, he's going to talk general information about the DMV boxing scene and anything that you guys might want to know. I think he might have some few answers for you guys. This man has covered boxing for a long time. He knows the ins and outs of boxing from the administrative level to the technical level. So I'm going to give him time just to say whatever in his heart about boxing in the area and boxing in general. And from there, I'll ask him a few questions. So Digital, you have the chance to say for about 3-4 minutes what's in your heart about boxing, what you might want the DMV fans to know about boxing. That might be commissioners, that might be boxers, trainers, fans, just boxing in general. You have been covering this sport. Tell us about boxing. What do you think and what's going on in the boxing world right now, especially in the DMV area? Okay,
thank you, CP. I think one of the things, folks, that we need to understand is that one of the reasons why I started boxing along the Beltway some 8 years ago is because most folks in the area did not know how good the DMV boxing scene was, which I'm glad for this show, for example, the opportunity to do this, because this show is one of those venues and one of those vehicles that now will tell you how good some of the boxing is in this area. Many of the boxers are in this area. Most people around the country, either on the amateur or the pro level, really know how good boxing is in this area. But a lot of people in this area don't know. Now, having said that, we have great boxers. We've had great cards over the years. But unlike like any other area around the country, there are issues. There's no question about that. And recently, we had an issue situation. One of the most debatable topics on my blog has been, how do you move a fighter? How do you get him from, or her, from the status of being the first bout on a card to the main event? What do you do? And what I've learned over the last two plus decades is that, CP, there's no one way to do that. There's no one way to do that. However, there are some ways that maybe they should avoid in a situation. That took place recently at Echo Stage Lounge in Washington, D.C. As we've talked about earlier, we have some great young boxers. And sometimes they get fed opponents that, quite frankly, belong in the ring as much as I do. Some of them can't even spell the word fight, much less fight, period. And a lot of the young boxers, we mentioned some of them like Jarrell Harris and also Gervonta Davis and some of the other ones, they got fed those type of boxers. And they just cannot grow as boxers from that first of the card to the main event, getting fed a constant diet of this. And that falls on the promoters, that falls on the commissioners as well, because the commissions have to take a objective look at the situation and say to the promoter, we can't have a bout like this, because it just does not look very professional. It's going to look very bad on their record in the grand scheme of things. Maybe a win, but does it prepare you to get from one level to the next? So we have commissions in this area, and we have 3, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, of course. And Maryland is very proactive. D.C. not so as much. Neither is Virginia at times as well. So the question is, would you rather see your prospect get a constant diet of a North Carolina-based opponent, or do you want your guy to face somebody who may not have the best record in the world, but has been in the pro ring a number of times, has fought some quality opposition in the past, and will give your prospect good work? There are guys we've had in this area, come into this area, like Damon Antoine out of Michigan, like Martinez Clay out of North Carolina, way back, going back a couple years, about 10, 15 years, we had twins known as the Whitley brothers, Derek and Darren Whitley. They were out of Massachusetts. They were known as Double Impact. Both of them had really upside down records. But I tell you, our boxers were better for facing those guys. And every now and then they would get a win out of the deal. But it showed the lack of preparation that particular prospect may have had facing a guy like Derek and Darren Whitley. My personal opinion, you need to have those type of boxers face your prospect and get them ready for the next level. We've seen recently, CP, a guy by the name of Seth Mitchell in this area, heavyweight. And DC and the Beltway region has not been known primarily for their heavyweights. But we've had a few, and of course I've seen Rockman out of Baltimore went all the way to the world title twice. But Seth was fed some guys that may not have been the best of opponents for him. And so when he faced a guy like Jonathan Banks the first time around, he didn't do very well. Now, as we are putting this together, the rematch is coming up very soon. And so if for example, he does not do well in the rematch, then we may know, CP, where he may stand and whether or not he can go to the next level. So that's an issue. I mean, and again, he hasn't faced those North Carolina guys primarily. He's faced some pretty good content. I mean, Maurice Winslow's and some of those guys who, again, are guys that are very, very tough to beat. They have awkward styles at times. I think of a guy named Mike Miller, who's also in that category. And so there's no one way to do this. But I can tell you this much. If you cheat the fans won't come back. And what happened at Echo Stage Lounge recently was an example of the promoter, in this case, cheating the fans. And what I've been telling folks, CP, in this situation also, is that we cannot judge the Beltway region based on that card we saw. We have a lot of cards coming up in D.C. and in Baltimore and coming up later on in the year in Virginia that I can pretty much guarantee you we'll have competitive fights, we'll have great opportunities to see our young talent in the area, and we're in a situation in our area where it's a minor league attitude with major league talent. And here's what I mean by that. We have a lot of what we call club shows. Club shows are sort of like going to see the Bay Sox, going to see the Potomac Nationals. They're guys that you see who are pros, but they're young pros for the most part, and it's the step before they get to be seen on ESPN on a regular basis, on HBO on a regular basis, on Showtime on a regular basis, and they get that national television exposure. So you can say, I saw them win, okay? Watching back in the day, watching Mark Too Sharp Johnson. I covered Mark Johnson from his third fight. And one of the biggest thrills I ever had was watching him on a pay-per-view show win his first world title against Francisco Teodoro. And now he's the first boxer that I've covered from the beginning of his pro career all the way to the Hall of Fame. That's the opportunity that you all as fans have by watching some of these young boxers now. Because Lamont Peterson, for me, is the first world champion that I've covered that I saw in the amateurs. We look at Gary Russell Jr. and some of the ones we've mentioned early on. This is your opportunity as boxing fans, and even as sports fans in the DMV, just like DMV Sports. This is the opportunity to say to the fans, to say to yourself, I saw so-and-so in his fourth bout at Showplace Arena, or at UDC, or at Martin's West, or at Michael's 8th Avenue, or the Convention Center. And so 5 years down the road, or maybe even less, who knows, the way boxing is now, they'll say that that is where you saw them, and now they're at world championship level. And that's basically it, CP, as far as where we are in the DMV and what needs to be changed. But in the grand scheme of things, that's what the great thing about watching these guys and gals on a regular basis.
Gary, you mentioned something about these upcoming fighters, but as I go to a lot of blogs, especially YouTube, you seem to be very enthusiastic about these young upcoming fighters who happen to be kids anyway. Dusty is about 19 years old.
19 years old now, yeah.
Reed is about
18, 19, 20
these
years
are
old.
young kids.
Yeah.
But especially when I go to your blog, as a matter of fact, I was on your blog last night. That's why I didn't sleep. So I blame you for that. Anyway, but I really want you to talk to the fans out there, and especially the people that go on YouTube and leave comments there. As a father, as an educator, as a teacher, as a responsible citizen, but most importantly, as a human being. Some of these comments are vicious.
Yes.
To these kids who are young.
Yeah.
You have kids like Dusty. Sometimes he gets vicious comments on YouTube. Michael Reed, Gary Odom. I need you to talk to the fans.
Yeah, you know. Okay, I'm sorry. Here's the thing. The internet is a haven, unfortunately, and it's not just for boxing blogs or anything like that, but some of the things that have gone on around the country, around the world. I mean, for example, the comments that were made. I'm just using this as an example. The comments were made to the Cheerios company concerning an ad they had involving a mixed race family. Some of the comments that were so vicious that they actually on the YouTube channel disabled the comments. And over the year, and I use that as an example because some people say the internet is a haven for racist commentary, supremacist talk, and things of that nature, because you can do it anonymously, and basically you can say what you want to say and don't have to own up to it, so to speak.
Yeah.
And over the 8 years we've done the blog, one of the problems I've had and the difficulties I've had, and I've gone back and forth over it over that 8-year period, is whether or not to cut off the anonymous commentary, to force them to put their name to the commentary. And I did it. I stopped it for a little bit, and here's what I found out happened. The traffic on the blog went down dramatically. People sometimes check into the blog to see some of that stuff.
Negative stuff.
Negative stuff, yes. And the other aspect of it, and here's one of the reasons, here's the big reason why I decided to keep the anonymous going. Many of the people that comment on the blog are people who are in this business.
Oh.
And because of their standing within the business, they cannot put their names to some of the comments. Okay? So to allow them an opportunity to make comments, and most of those folks are not the hateful folks, because sometimes I can tell just by the manner in which they write who it may be.
Oh.
Okay? So some people who write, you can tell they're somewhat knowledgeable about the business, and primarily because they're somewhere in the business and they cannot make their identities be known. So I get that and I understand that, and that's part of the reason why I leave it on there. The other reason is really kind of a selfish in nature on my part, and that is the traffic bills. The card we did at Echo Stage Lounge recently, I got more traffic on that card. As far as what we do, for those who don't know, we blog the results live on the card. So after every result, we blog the card. My partner Juan Marshall, Pro Am Fight Talk, he puts the pictures together. And as the card is going on, we're putting together the results of the show. And what normally happens, and it even happened during Lamont Peterson Amir Khan and during Lamont Peterson Kendall Holt. They'll get the responses, they get the information, but won't make a lot of comments on it. Okay? And you can almost tell when a good card is taking place because no one will comment, which is really bizarre. And I learned that recently at Echo Stage because I got so many comments about how ridiculous that card was as the card was going on.
By the fans at home?
By the fans at home, and some fans were even at the arena that night. Some people had their phones out and reading the blog as they're watching the show, and they're commenting as they're there, which I thought was interesting too. But there was a lot more traffic about this particular card than any other. The champion class card here. Not too many comments on that. No, actually, I take it back. I did not blog them because I was working, as you can see, I was working the broadcast that night. So I didn't have a whole lot of time to blog that particular night. But other cards we've had in the area, very little commentary on it. Okay? But sometimes you got to take the bitter with the sweet, so to speak. And so what I've learned is that if somebody is making a comment that I know for a fact that is wrong, then yes, I will correct them on that inaccuracy. I will say that no, this is not right, this is not the matchmaker, or this didn't happen that way. And they may challenge me on it and say that's where they told you that it happened, but I know. I said, no, you don't. Basically what I tell them, you don't know. Because you don't know as much as I know in this situation 9 times out of 10. And if it is right, then I'll definitely stand corrected and make that correction known. But unless it is inaccurate, then basically what it boils down to is freedom of speech. It boils down to the somewhat immaturity on the poster's part sometimes. And also it comes down to, quite frankly, as they say, haterade. Because a lot of the folks that do comment anonymously are very jealous of some of the talent that we have in this area. They wish they could be in a position where guys like Dusty Harrison and Michael Reed and Javante Davis and others are right now. So it's just something that I've had to learn to deal with. I'm still learning to deal with it at times, but it's something that, in all honesty, for the popularity's sake of the blog, I probably have to keep it where it is for this moment anyway, until I figure out how to do it otherwise.
Excellent insight. I just want you to quickly touch on promoters.
Okay.
They are the ones that bring boxing to us. Mm-hmm. Quickly run around the promoters that you are very impressed with in the DMV area and just name them. Okay. And also the promoters that you wish they can do better. And mention the few things that you think can be done better. And with some of the commissioners, the DMV, the commission in DC, in Virginia, and Maryland, and just give us a quick analysis of those commissioners. Okay,
no problem. Let's start with promoters first. And I think the one promotion that has done more for our young talent in the past 2 or 3 years has to be Keystone Boxing out of Marlow Heights, Maryland. This is a group that I've known for years. Gene Malovinsky has run it. In fact, at one time, Gene Malovinsky not only promoted fighters, but he also managed a number of fighters. Most notably, a guy by the name of Lamont Pearson, who was a lightweight, junior lightweight contender for many years. But he has done Gene Malovinsky and Keystone Boxing have done an outstanding job of bringing out young boxers an avenue for to showcase their wares. In fact, and we were talking about this at the Echo Stage Lounge show, Keystone Boxing needs to be credited for allowing other promoters to really get things going in the last couple of years. Keystone Boxing opened the door because last year, 2012, they had a card 11 out of the 12 months of the year last year. They ran every month somewhere. Showplace Arena, Rosecroft Raceway, anywhere in the area, DC Convention Center. They ran all around the area and did an outstanding job. So they do a great job. Jimmy Lang Boxing, Ice Promotions, mostly surrounding Jimmy Lang himself. But you cannot deny that they've done an outstanding job at the Patriot Center, at their home base. They do a tremendous job as boxing in the area. One promoter that I wish could do a little better, and it really isn't all her fault, and that is Cassandra White at Baby Girl Promotions. Cassandra has had some of the worst luck of any promoter I've ever been around.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, she's had bouts follow out on. She had a championship bout that she was scheduled between Tori Nelson and Maria Lindbergh, which I think would have been an outstanding bout. Come to find out, at literally hours before the show, they get a phone call from the Associated Boxing Commissioners. They don't allow Maria Lindbergh to fight because of health issues. That's the type of luck Cassandra's had. Cassandra's had some great ideas. She's had some really good cards. She had a great card at Howard University a few years ago. And the World Boxing Foundation named her the Promoter of the Year, deservedly so for their federation. But she's also had some very, very bad luck. And I'm hoping that she will keep going and try to keep things going in her area. We've talked about the promoter for Echo Stage Lounge, G Promotions, his first show. And while I, on the one hand, want to give him the benefit of the doubt that it was his first show, I've seen promoters do their first shows a whole lot better than what took place at Echo Stage Lounge. And he made too many mistakes in that situation. The promoter's known as G. He made too many mistakes on that particular card. He did a card on the cheap. And in this business, you've got to have deep pockets and long arms. I have neither, and that's why I don't promote. Simple as that. And so when you don't have that, and you try to do things on the cheap, and you read my blog, you'll understand what I mean by that. But if you do things on the cheap and try to cut corners and all that, chances are you end up with a lousy show. That's what happened in that situation. Now, as far as the commissioners, we are very blessed in this area. We have 3 pretty strong commissions. DC has turned things around pretty much over the last year or so. They're starting to get some really big fights. They've already gotten 2 world title fights just in the last year. Lamont Peterson and Amir Khan, Lamont Peterson and Kendall Hope. They are in the running, and right now I think they're ahead of the course because of some situations outside the area, to get Lucas Matisse and Danny Garcia doubled up with Lamont Peterson and Zab Judah on September 7th at Verizon Center. As of right now, they are the forerunners, primarily because the Barclays Center in Brooklyn is not ready. It's not available, and neither is Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City. And I don't think they want to go to Madison Square Garden. That may not be available either. So the Golden Boy wants to put that doubleheader together at Verizon Center in September. That's a big move for DC. And DC, quiet as it's kept, has been historical as far as some of the things they've done. They've been involved in some historical situations. They did an open scoring show back in 1999. They had a card where 2 female referees, Michelle Myers and Sharon Sands, worked an entire card. First time it's ever been done. And of course, at Echo Stage Lounge, the one thing that really salvaged the show at all was the fact that they had a women's title bout that went 12 rounds and 3 minutes each round. That's historical. And DC's been a part of that, and they need to promote that a little bit more. Maryland has been tremendous. And the only problem that Maryland has had over the last couple of years is they've run out of promoters almost, because they had 2 promoters in that area over the years: Scott Wagner over at Michael's 8th Avenue, Jake Smith over at Pikesville National Guard Army. He used Martin's West in Woodlawn, Maryland, and also he's one other place he's used that did shows in the Baltimore area many times over. And even before then, we had shows at Martin's Crosswinds in Woodlawn. We had some out here in Rockville. We've had shows in Martin's Crosswinds, Showplace Arena in Upper Marlboro, and many other places. But what happened was, promoters in particular, Scott Wagner and Jake Smith, got burned out. So now they're looking for people to fill the void. One of them has been Keystone, we talked about earlier. The other one is Upton Boxing, Calvin Ford. They're putting a show in Baltimore, West Baltimore, on July the 20th at Coppin State University. in Baltimore, Maryland, a place I'm very familiar with because I also serve as the public address announcer for Coppin State's men's and women's basketball teams. But they have a great facility over there. They really want to bring it to the community, and Maryland is doing a great job in allowing some of those bouts to take place there. And as I said earlier, Pat Pinella, the executive director, Bill McCaffrey, the chair of the commission, they're a very proactive commission, and they really want to make sure the boxers are safe in that situation. Over in Virginia, we have David Holland, who is he and Tracy Fagan are basically a two-person operation, which to me doesn't do a whole lot, but they've done well with that. And they've had some great shows, not only on the northern side of Virginia, but if you go down south to Richmond and Roanoke and that area, and up in Lynchburg and the western part of Virginia, they've had some really, really good cards there. They're growing. And what's going to be growing in Virginia, now the people, our fans need to watch out for this. Virginia is bringing in some very, very good amateurs. They have some very good young pros. Quite frankly, they can build an entire promotion, an entire area around the Aleem brothers, Moshe and Emmanuel Aleem. Moshe has yet to make his pro debut. Emmanuel, I believe, is 2-0, 2 KOs as a pro. I've been watching those guys since the amateurs as well. Those guys are tremendous fighters and really promoters in Virginia. I know Dr. Richard Ashby has promoted some shows down there. He's having some difficulty there. He's also promoted shows in Northern Virginia. And of course, you mentioned Jimmy Lang Boxing as well, doing a good job in Virginia. So Virginia is becoming a rapidly growing market for boxing on that side of the DMV. They've had other promoters with Han Kim and Scott Farmer and some others, but Joe Hensley. But they've got some amateurs that can grow into some good professionals now. And hopefully that will mark some more activity in Virginia.
That was a very good commentary from Gary Digital Williams. Before we go, we hope you guys had a good time. We enjoyed the show. We are going to have another show next week. This time, we will still go to gyms, fields, stadiums to cover local sports. So just call us, go to Facebook, send us a message, and we'll come to wherever you are. We get footage. This is a free public service we do to you. Before we wrap it up, Gary Digital Williams is going to close with some words that he has in his heart to the DMV fans, whatever you want to say. So we give him the stage to wish you goodbye till we see you next week. This is CP from the DMV Boxing Zone Show. We leave you with Gary Digital Williams.
And I've talked a lot today, and thank you all for listening. And all I can tell you is always, as I say on my blog all the time, on my podcast, keep supporting the best boxing in the world, the boxing along the Beltway. Thank you, CP. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Gary. Till we meet again. You'll be back.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Okay.
Take care, everybody.